You've probably seen pictures or video footage of lions in the savannah lying around on their backs in the sun, surrounded by grazing zebra and giraffe, who don't look worried about the lions at all. I can tell you, if I was lying on my back in the savannah, surrounded by grazing cookies, those cookies would be in trouble. And I have no idea what that even meant. I don't know where that came from. What am I talking about? Welcome to SHAPEFIXER. I'm Andrew. I'm a nutritionist, and in this video, I'm going to try and explain to you why counting carbs, counting proteins, counting fat, weighing your food is a complete and utter waste of time if you're trying to lose weight and stay healthy. But strangely, it does have a value. So what kind of sense does that make? Right, let's get into it. Firstly, it has nothing to do with grazing cookies. I can't unsee that now. I have no idea what that meant. So what happens? Why does the preferred prey of the lion not worry about grazing right under the noses of an entire pride of lions? It's because the lions know when to not eat. Their hormones drive them to hunt and to eat when they're hungry, and when they're not hungry, they lose all interest and they just couldn't be bothered. And the other animals know this. So why doesn't this happen to us? Why do we continually eat and eat too much and put on weight and struggle to lose weight and then suffer all the metabolic diseases that are associated with being overweight or obese? And then we try everything we can think of to slow ourselves down and to eat less, including counting calories, which is a different topic, and I've done a video on that. I'm going to link it down below here in the notes. I'll also stick a thing up here somewhere at the end. Calories are notoriously difficult to pin down and to count, and I think most of us don't even know what they are, so watch that video. But the other thing we try and do is we try and control the weight or the mass of the food we eat. So many grams of carbohydrate or ounces, it just depends where you live. So many grams of fat, so many grams of this or that. And we weigh all our food and we fill in a little spreadsheet. And in a lot of cases, we still don't lose weight. It might work for some. But what you're trying to do then is control your urge to eat by letting the spreadsheet tell you to stop. Even though you're feeling hungry, you go, nope, that's it. I've had all my grams of whatever it is, and I can't eat anymore. I mustn't eat anymore. Even though my body is telling me to, and I want to. And I question how sustainable that is. If you're going to spend the rest of your life feeling hungry, but allowing a spreadsheet to tell you when to stop, you're a stronger person than I'm ever going to be, because I can't see that working. And I think there are enough hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who have tried this and eventually just cracked and given up. So how do the lions do it? They don't have a spreadsheet. They don't weigh the zebra. They don't know how many calories of giraffe they've eaten. And yet they stay perfectly healthy, and they eat when they need to, and then when they don't need to, they don't. It's because eating correctly and regulating how much you eat is something that just happens naturally if you are eating the right food. So the key is to eat the right food. You don't need to worry about how much of anything you eat, because when you eat the right food, your body will tell you when to stop and will tell you what to eat more of or less of. Your body is an amazingly fine-tuned biocomputer that functions incredibly well when you fuel it correctly. But we don't. We eat the wrong foods mostly. And if you cut out the foods that are sabotaging your system, sabotaging your metabolism, sabotaging the operation of your hormones, then they will work properly and you'll be fine. But you've got to eat the right stuff. So it's very simple. Cut out sugar. You know this, you've heard this. If nobody hasn't heard this. But there are three things about sugar, about cutting out sugar. One is the obvious sugar. That's easy. We all know what that is. That is sugar that you spoon into your coffee in the morning, or that is sugar that is baked into the cookies you eat and the cakes and the desserts, the ice creams. All right, so all that sweet stuff. And a lot of people cut down on that, and that's a very good start. The second source of dietary sugar is not as obvious, and that is the sugar that you find in products that come from plants, and the sugar is in the form of starch. Okay, so let's understand what sugar is. Sugar is made by plants. Plants make sugar. That's where sugar comes from. They then store it in their bodies, in the roots, in the fruit, wherever. They store that sugar in the form of starch, which we then eat in bread and pasta and grains, breakfast cereals, corn, rice. It's sugar, but it's in the form of glucose, which isn't sweet the way fructose is. And there's a lot of fructose in table sugar, which makes it very sweet. So unless you've been told and you understand what starch is actually made of, you might not realize that you're still eating a lot of sugar. So every slice of bread you eat is a bunch of sugar. So you've got to cut that out as well. And then the third source of dietary sugar, which is actually deliberately hidden and disguised, is the sugar that is injected into so many ultra-processed foods. And it's put in there in a chemical laboratory at a food company to make it taste nice and to make it addictive. Very often in the form of fructose or fructose cornstarch syrup, extra sugars added to your yogurt, to your cereals, to your drinks, to get you hooked on it and to get you addicted to it. And that is the most difficult form of sugar. Now, fortunately, to an extent, you can identify it just by looking at the packet and looking at the ingredients and hoping that they're telling the truth. And it will tell you how much sugar is in there. There's also tricks around that. They'll say 10 grams of carbohydrate, of which 2 grams is sugar. Nonsense. It's all sugar because carbohydrates are sugar. So you just look at the carbohydrate content of what it is that you're eating. Now, the issue with sugar, the problem here with sugar from all those three sources is that it interferes with the normal metabolism of your body, primarily by raising your insulin. And when insulin goes up, it interferes with the production of satiety hormones that would normally tell you to stop eating. It makes you feel hungry all the time, even when you're actually not. You're not in an energy deficit, but you somehow feel hungry. So you go and eat more and more and more until you feel sick, or your stomach is so distended that you're in pain. And it also stops you burning fat. So you're never going to lose weight. Okay, and we've discussed this a lot in a lot of videos. So it sounds like one of the solutions would be to weigh your food and figure out how much carbs you're eating and keep it down below, say, 20 grams or whatever. But it's very difficult to do that because you don't really know, even a piece of steak, you're going to have 2 pieces of steak and one will have more fat on it or one will have more carbohydrate in it because, yes, there is carbohydrate even in meat, tiny amount. So you're not quite sure what you're weighing. Those numbers that are a guide are pretty tenuous because one person weighs 100 kilograms and another person weighs 50 kilograms. What, are you telling me they need the same number of grams of anything? So you don't really know what you're weighing. You don't really know what your body's using. You don't know how efficient your body is at actually absorbing all the nutrients in the food that you eat. So a lot of it will be going through you. So you don't know what your body's doing with it. You don't know what your metabolic rate is doing from 1 hour to the next in terms of its rate of burning through fuel. So the best thing to do is to just avoid food with sugar in it because you don't need sugar. Sugar is not an essential nutrient. There's nothing sugar does at all other than need to be burned. And if you don't burn it, it makes you fat. Now, you could say, yes, but I have to burn something because I need energy. That's the point. That is true, but you can just burn fat. And you burn fat very efficiently without the energy spikes and lows that come with the continual seesaw of being a sugar burner. So if you can convert your body from a sugar burner to a fat burner, so you eat fatty food and protein and you don't eat sugar, you're going to get some sugar. You will, because there is a little bit of sugar in everything. But so long as you're not eating obvious sugar, or you're trying your best to avoid food with high starch content or sugar content or carbohydrate content, you'll be fine. And when the sugar you do eat will be such a low level that it won't really interfere with your metabolism. You will be able to burn fat. You won't be hungry all the time. You won't have these energy spikes and then these horrible lows that you get when it wears off. And you will naturally control what you eat and how much you eat. And you won't have to keep weighing everything and doing maths and sticking it in a spreadsheet. Now, I did say that it does have a use. And I get it, because I tend to be a bit like that myself with a lot of things. Not with my food. I do with my athletic training. I keep a very meticulous log of every mile I run. I can tell you exactly how many miles I've run since I was a teenager, and I'm 60 now. So it's like crazy. If you are that kind of person, and weighing your food and counting the carbs and measuring the grams of everything that you've eaten and keeping a running total and putting it on a spreadsheet, if that's something you like doing, and it makes you feel in control and makes you feel like you're making progress, of course do it. Of course, why not? Go right ahead. It's absolutely fine. You might be more stressed if you don't do it, because you'll be wondering what you've eaten. Okay, fine, do it. But do it understanding that you're doing it for your mental health, and you're not doing it because it's so important for your metabolic health, because it isn't. If you eat correctly, that won't be an issue, and you won't need to try and measure anything. You can just eat when you're hungry. Don't eat when you're not hungry. You will lose weight and you will be healthy. Please like this video. Please subscribe to our channel. Please consider becoming a member of this channel for extra content that we do on a regular basis, and see you in the next video.